Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Utility Sports Plus, and we're so excited. NFL Week 11 predictions and pick 'em. Where has the season gone? We've already gone so far into the year, and we want to thank you guys all for sticking with us throughout the season. If you have enjoyed the content and you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to do so. Leave a like. You guys know the drill, and let's jump into it, Austin, here. Let's not waste any of our viewers' time with our pick 'em records. And Austin, right before coming on camera, he said, Sheldon, you have the lead this week. You finally caught all the way up. This is what Austin thinks is caught up for me. He's giving me a 4-game handicap. He thinks I'm that bad at pick'em that this is a tie ball game to him. So take that as you will. Austin 94 and 55. I know a little internally disappointed if he was coaching the teams he was picking, they would be way better, win a lot more of the games he's picking. Just I want to leave that out there. The only team that I don't think he could make better is the Jacksonville Jaguars, but even then he probably still could. So there's a lot of energy
No,
here.
no, no, no. I have to stop it. I have to stop it here because we have to look at this from the realm, guys. The last 5 weeks, Sheldon has either tied or been better than me in the pick'em. So if you're betting real money, if you have your house on the line, take out a loan and bet all of that and go with Sheldon's picks.
Here, here's
100%.
one here's one thing I have to say, Austin. That mentality that you're going with of what have you done for me lately is the same reason the Giants gave Daniel Jones a 4-year, $160 million contract. And even then, with how quote unquote great I've been, I'm still losing. This is like, rookie of the year race between Trae Young and Luka Doncic. Austin is Luka. I'm Trae Young, nowhere near him in this conversation. Let's stop wasting our time. Let's get forward here, guys, into the actual picks. And well, first of all, we got our bye week teams. The New Orleans Saints, after, well, not playing very well against the Minnesota Vikings for 3 quarters, they get a week to think about it. The Colts, Falcons, and Patriots are all in here as well. I think the Patriots are a team worth touching on here, Austin. Mac Jones actually gets benched for the final drive. Bailey Zappi comes in. The Patriots do not get the job done. They're on a 3-game losing streak, 2-8 at this point of the year, just a 20% win percentage, Austin. How bad are the Patriots right now? And do you think Bill Belichick is coaching this team next season?
Yeah, I don't I think he'll be back next season, but I think there's a lot of things that are in doubt, including that quarterback position. Mac Jones has just been moved to number 3 on the depth chart. Very surprising move there by the Patriots, but he's played himself into that, unfortunately. So uncompetitive start to the season by the Patriots, and a couple of these other teams are definitely middling. So not a ton of explosion from these teams here on bye.
Yeah, they're going to need to get themselves kind of corrected and fixed up this week with their late bye week. Let's jump into our Thursday night game, though, and it's a fun one here. Amazon Prime, Thursday Night Football, AFC North football. You can't go wrong with a matchup like this late into the season. You got that cold November weather. You've got those, dangerous AFC North matchups. Always fun to watch, right? And Austin, we're actually going with a split decision here on this one. The Cincinnati Bengals at the Baltimore Ravens. Feels like the Bengals have been a real toss-up this year. What version of them are you going to get week in, week out? I'm riding with them this week. I know the Ravens, they should be considered the favorite in this game. They are 7-3, 2 games in front of the Bengals, actually a game and a half, who are 5-4. And this could go a long way in deciding the AFC North. All 4 of the teams are above 500. And for me, what I'm betting on here is the Bengals just able to keep up with the Ravens' firepower. The Ravens have been fantastic scoring the football this year. Their defense has also been phenomenal. They've been clearly the best team in the AFC North. But for me, I just feel a little bit of confidence in Cincinnati. Tough loss last week. I think they can come in, get a W here, and really propel themselves in this divisional race. Austin, you went with the Ravens. What do you like about them?
I think with how they're running the football, how they're throwing it, moving it through the air, there's a lot to love about this offense and the complementary football that they've been playing. Their defense has been awesome, especially against the run. Therefore, I think they might be able to bottle up Joe Mixon a little bit. They're going to force the hand of Joe Burrow and what he's doing. To me, I'm pretty excited about what the Ravens have to offer. Generally speaking, I'd like to take the Bengals, but this year I've been a little bit colder on them. And I think that when you look at these two teams, I think it's a pretty evenly contested matchup. To me, the big difference is the fact that I don't know that the Bengals are going to make the plays that they need to. But once again, we have to look at last week. Both teams were very puzzling losses that they had faced. Obviously Baltimore blows that lead and loses ultimately to Cleveland, and then followed by, the Bengals not being able to hold on there against Houston.
I think a really good feel-good story for them. Keaton Mitchell, he's had some real explosive plays. Now, I don't think we'd say he has the fight for yards trait necessarily, but he's been really, really good in his limited touches this season. So we'll have to see if he breaks another long one in this game. Let's jump into our Sunday slate here now as we start with a matchup here between the Dallas Cowboys, Carolina Panthers. And this is kind of a story of two teams here. The Cowboys, really good football team. Now, one thing I'm going to say, they haven't traveled very well. They're just 2-3 on the road, but they are coming off of a pretty good win this past week. And then you got the Panthers, who are 1-8. They are 1-3 at home, 0-5 on the road. So having home field advantage does go a long way for them here. I don't think this game is going to necessarily be as lopsided as most people would expect. But just quite frankly, the Cowboys pass rush, their defensive play in general this year has been relatively good. They've only allowed 165 points. They're a plus 104 scoring margin on the year. I think that they win this game still handedly. I don't think that it's going to come down to a final possession. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I feel confident in the Cowboys here. Austin, anything else you want to add into this one?
No, I don't think there's a ton to add because the Cowboys have looked great. And I think that when they are able to match up on a team like Carolina and tee off against their offensive line, send a ton of different looks, they're going to get pressure with just four guys to me against Carolina. So not a lot to talk about in this one. But to me, I think we both have a ton of confidence in the Cowboys moving forward.
For those NFL draft gurus out here, I think one of the big storylines is if the Panthers can get a win at the end of the season somehow, some way here. They're only 1-8. Currently, they're the only one-win football team in the entire NFL, which means the pick that they traded away to the Chicago Bears to move up for Bryce Young last year now projects to potentially become Caleb Williams this year, which pretty crazy turn of events. We'll see if Carolina was smart in their decision or not. Obviously, it kind of depends on how the final weeks go. We've seen some crazy things happen in the passing about the Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson draft as an example of that. But that's something definitely to keep our eyes on in the final few weeks of the season. Jumping into our next game now, and this is another fun one, AFC North battle. Again, we've got two great AFC North games this week. Pittsburgh Steelers head into Cleveland to take on the Browns, and both of these teams are playing pretty good football right now. Steelers on a 2-game win streak, as are the Browns. And I think really the big difference in this game, the Browns offense has come to life, whereas the Steelers offense is still quite shaky. And for me, that's the big reason why I'm going with Cleveland here. I think that, Deshaun Watson starting to look more like the Deshaun Watson they traded for, which is obviously a good sign for them. They need that version of Deshaun Watson to make that trade at all worth it. And I think they're starting to get it a little bit. Austin, what's your take on this game? How close does this one come down to, especially in an AFC North battle?
I think when you look at the Cleveland Browns, they show a team of resilience, and that was the case against Baltimore. They were so good. The mental resolve, everything had played into the favor of Cleveland. This is a good football team, an even better defense when you put it on paper than what Pittsburgh has to offer. Pittsburgh offense is still abysmal at this point. I do not trust, Kenny Pickett necessarily. Now, they've been able to get some wins. They've been able to get some close wins, which is likely what this contest is going to really hold. But to me, I think when you have the Browns at home, they're a tough team to beat, especially with how they're playing right now. I have quite a bit of confidence in them. But once again, Mike Tomlin has proven me wrong time and time again, especially this season. So maybe that is going to be the latest product of it.
Yeah, we'll have to see how this game goes, but it's a very exciting matchup for sure in week 11. Let's jump forward now into our next one. And we got the Bears taking on the Lions, another North matchup, here in the NFC. Now we got the Bears and Lions. Awesome. The Lions are just significantly better than the Chicago Bears. 7-2 versus 3-7. Surprisingly here, the Bears are actually over 200 points for on the season, which is within 37 points of the Lions. I think that's a little bit closer than most people would expect. Just looking at these two teams on paper and their rosters, the Bears are playing a little bit better as of late. But the Lions at 7-2, they kind of still run that division. I think a win here propels them again up to 8-2, and they're just in good position right now. Austin, what's your take on this one, and how have you been impressed by the Lions this year?
Yeah, the Lions, once again, offensively, they have so many different weapons that they can throw at you. David Montgomery's been a pleasant surprise when healthy. Jahmyr Gibbs, in his absence, has been phenomenal. I think when you look at what they've been able to do, open it up offensively, get him out into space, has created some of those explosives that they were kind of lacking. Outside of that, Amon-Ra St. Brown, this is a phenomenal play action team. They are able to burn you deep. when necessary. But a lot of times you're going to see a lot of nickel and diming. The short to intermediate routes have absolutely killed opposing teams, and that is going to continue here in this game. I don't expect it to be any different. The Chicago Bears, to me, still don't necessarily impress me, despite them, picking up a win here and there. But to me, they don't offer enough defensively to be able to contain the Lions.
This is a game Detroit has to take seriously, not necessarily just because of the Bears, but because of the Vikings, who are on a 5-game win streak, kind of chasing them down a little bit in that division. So each win does go a long way at this time of the season. So hopefully the Lions, for their own sake, can continue playing good football. Let's jump into our next game. We see a matchup here between the Los Angeles Chargers and the Green Bay Packers. And, the Packers, they haven't been the typical Packers we're accustomed to seeing, Austin. This year, they're just 3-6. I think the offense with Jordan Love has taken a significant step backward from even where they were a year ago, where they weren't their typical Packers selves then. This year, they're definitely not that. At 3-6, they're just not been a great football team. But the Chargers, kind of hovering around 4-5, they haven't been much better, and they've had some issues despite outscoring their opponents this year pretty handedly. They've dropped a couple of weird games in the process. So we're both going with the Chargers here in Lambeau. That's a tough bet to make. Austin, do you feel good about this pick, or is this one of those potential trap games here for the Chargers?
I think that this is a little bit of a trap game for the Chargers, just considering that they have to go into Lambeau at this point in the season. But let's not make any mistakes here. I don't have a ton of confidence in the Pack. I really don't. I think that they should be running the football a little more effectively than they currently are. Jordan Love has got to be more consistent with the ball. But for the Chargers here, they remain very competitive in that game against Detroit. This is an explosive offense still to this day. You have a premier wide receiver in Keenan Allen, and you also have a nice complementary running back in Austin Eckler, who can make those big plays. He can pick up those chunk yardages as well. So to me, I look at it through the lens of the Chargers are the better team on paper. Sometimes we have to just stick with our gut and how we feel. As many people that might pick the Packers here, I don't know. I don't know about it. They're going to look at this. They're going to look at the records and say, well, they're at home. To me, I'm the prisoner of taking the better team generally when it is all said and done.
Yeah, I think the Chargers are better. I know, yes, again, only a 1-game difference really in their win-loss records, but I think that when you really consider the talent that the Chargers do have, I do think that they should be considered the favorite, specifically from the QB position. And also, like you highlighted with Eckler, some of the skill talent as well, just I think does supersede what Green Bay has on roster at this point. Jumping into our next game, we got the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Houston Texans, and the Texans have been a really good feel-good story this year, Austin. 5-4 record. In fact, they're 3-1 at home on a 2-game win streak. They've scored 217 points this year, and CJ Stroud looks legit. If you're a Houston fan right now or live in the city of Houston, you got to be excited about your sports. The Rockets are playing great. The Texans are playing great. There's a lot of great things going on. So a lot of love here in this video for H-Town. Arizona, we can't quite say the same. They're 2-8 and they're 0-5 on the road. So I see it almost impossible for them getting a win here. Now, when you do have a young QB like the Texans do, it's not a guarantee that you go in and win every game you should. But I'm looking at least a 10-point win here for them from what I project. Austin, what's kind of your score differential here for them? And what do you expect to see in this one?
Yeah, I think for the Houston Texans, it's all about consistency. CJ Stroud has been able to string together some games here, and he's been super impressive in that. He's making the winning plays. He's making the right reads. But Arizona's been a little bit feisty now that they have Kyler Murray into the fold. This adds in a completely different element to the offense that they have not had so far this season in terms of like those big explosive plays. Josh Dobbs was a nice quarterback for them in his time there. He wasn't creating the huge explosive plays that Kyler Murray has the ability to do. And I think that is probably going to be the difference maker in this offense. But to me, I think they're talent deficient, especially on the perimeter. They don't have as good of a running game as you would hope to complement Kyler Murray. And therefore, it's kind of a recipe of the Houston Texans, coming away with this one with a victory, especially the fact that they're at home as well, definitely helps.
Yeah, Kyler Murray in his return went 19 of 32 for 249 yards, did throw an interception, but had a touchdown on the ground. So, he does give them a little bit more of a fighting chance than what we've been accustomed to seeing this year from Arizona. They did, of course, win their most recent game against Atlanta. But I do think the Texans are just the safe pick here in this one. Let's jump into our next game. We see one of my favorite matchups of the year. The Tennessee Titans take on their father, the Jacksonville Jaguars, because the Jaguars are going to own this matchup. Jaguars win this game by at least 17 points. I'm projecting at least 3 interceptions, probably a Trayvon Walker sack mixed in there. I think the Jaguars are just the better football team. I've been saying it all year. I know people are going to clown me because they lost last week. I don't care. 6-3, they run the division. The Titans are 3-6. You can go back to week 1. I told everyone the Titans were frauds and not that good. I told everyone the DeAndre Hopkins thing wasn't worth doing. And I know people are going to say, oh my gosh, well, week 9, he had 30 fantasy. I don't care. Okay. I don't care how many fantasy points he had in week 9. He's not going to have that many against the Jaguars this week. Jags win this one comfortably. Austin, what's your take here?
I'm going to be the one of those that's clowning you, because how did that pan out last week? They got their butt whooped, and you had said that they are going to absolutely spank the Niners. I do have you on record of saying, I believe you said it was 3 touchdown score difference. Yes, yeah. It's just the wrong way. You just had a little bit of a mix up there. It's fine though, because Jacksonville here is going to they're going to play down to Tennessee, and this is going to be a 3-point game, in my opinion. Now, once again, maybe I'll get clowned later. Hopefully I do. I hope that Jags fans actually clown me, because that would be really, really fitting for the season here. But I know you have an insane amount of confidence in this team, but it's just so false. It's fool's gold. It's fool's gold. I'm telling you right now, mark it down. Mark it down. This team is not going to win a single playoff game.
Yeah, well, last year they did. They have more wins in the playoffs in the last 12 months than the New York Jets do in the last decade. I'm just going to point that out. And I also just want to say one thing here. First of all, not only is it just the best team in the division versus the worst team in the division, but the worst team in the division here, the Tennessee Titans, last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, hung up a total of 6 points. I thought I was watching a New York Giants game. Will Levis completed less than 50% of his passes. Derrick Henry, King Henry, Mr. Stiff Arm, the best running back in the NFL, whatever you want to call him, things I've never said out loud, averaged 2.2 yards per carry on the ground. Got outperformed by Tyjae Spears, who had 18 yards on the ground compared to Henry's 24 on over double the carries. But I guess if you want to have one real bright spot, Kyle Phillips had 60 receiving yards. That was sweet, I guess. The Titans are not good. Okay. We've wasted too much time on this. The Jaguars are going to roll this one over. 21-point win for sure. The Raiders here head into Miami to take on the Dolphins. And I think this is another one where I just feel pretty good betting on Miami. Now, listen, since firing Josh McDaniels, the Raiders have not lost a game. They're 2-0. I think they're playing pretty inspired football, honestly. They're doing a lot of really great things, but I think this is a bigger test for them. The Dolphins are undefeated at home at a 4-0 record. At 6-3, they've had a really good season for themselves. They've scored over 113 more points than the Raiders this year. And I think they're going to increase that number by outscoring them again this week in the win. I think the Dolphins are just a really good, well-rounded, solid football team with a pretty solid lead in the AFC East right now. They win this game comfortably. What are some matchups to watch for in this one, Austin?
I think more so on the injury report side of things, we had Jalen Waddle, who had injured his knee 2 weeks ago, had the bye week, was able to kind of rehab that a little bit. He's feeling pretty good. I think that adds a completely new element to this offense here, not only having Tyreek Hill, but Jalen Waddle healthy seemingly. I think it's going to be, the entire difference in this game. Antonio Pierce has this team playing super hard, and that is a true testament to what he's done. But once again, we've seen that with interim guys. They've been able to be rah-rah, get their team fired up, win a game or two, and then it kind of comes crashing down to earth. Generally, it's not the Cinderella ending to a story. This team does not have, the actual pieces to become a legitimate playoff contender from here on out. But to me, we're probably going to see some regression to the mean here. That's why the Dolphins are going to take this one at home.
Oh, yeah. Raiders fans know all about that interim magic last year when they lost to Jeff Saturday. They know exactly what you're talking about. I think that magic runs out here this week. Now, they did claim Jack Jones off of waivers from the Patriots. Just want to highlight that. Antonio Pierce coached him in high school and in college. So, he's getting a guy who I think is going to be pretty moldable into his secondary there. Not going to make a huge difference in this game, but I did want to touch on it. Nice little information nugget there for you guys. Let's jump into our next game, though. We see a fun matchup here between the New York Giants and the Washington Commanders. And the Giants this year, they've scored 118 points, which if you guys want to know for context, the next lowest number is 141. So basically their best half of football this year is the difference between the 32nd best offense and the 31st best offense. The Giants are going to get destroyed here. The Commanders, I'm not even a huge believer in, to be completely honest with you, but they're a heck of a lot better than the Giants. This is not going to be a competitive game. If you're not a fan of one of these two teams, it's not really a game that you're going to want to dial into and be like, oh my gosh, I better turn on Giants Commanders right now. This is not a great game, Austin. How big of a differential is this one? Or do you think, hey, divisional game, maybe it plays a little closer than I'm expecting?
Yeah, I can't even try to defend it. I was going to try to defend the Giants here, but I'm not going to. Ride with Sam Howell, man. I think he's going to have a great game. I think that Terry McLaurin should have a bounce back week. Was a little bit quiet last week. I think that is going to absolutely turn around here. They're going to be able to run the football effectively. I feel pretty confident in this Commanders pick, especially the fact that they are at home in this one. But yeah, Giants fans, let's look forward. We'll see you in April, I guess.
Yeah, quick reminder here. Now, October 22nd this year, the Giants did beat the Commanders in shocking fashion. Tyrod Taylor threw 2 touchdowns. Giants scored 14 points, seemingly a season high for them. Just not going to be a great matchup. Buccaneers, Niners here, though. Yeah, I bet against the Niners last week. As you can see, I'm not doing that again this time around. I think the 49ers win here. This is me saving face a little bit. The Niners, 6-3. They're a good team. Didn't mean any disrespect to them. Austin, take it away.
No, it's just awesome because you've been a big aggregate guy, except for when it came to that Jags and 49ers game last week. You were so quiet. I did not get a single call or text or anything about that game. 49ers are great. Their front seven is unbelievable, especially the guys up front there rushing the quarterback, Chase Young, Nick Bosa. This is a legit group. They can move the football effectively when they have Deebo Samuel back into the lineup. He is the true difference maker and the engine and catalyst behind this team. As much as people want to say Christian McCaffrey, but if you want to talk about the true impact player that actually makes them from a winning to a losing team, to me, it's Deebo Samuel. Some people are going to clown me for saying that, but the proof's in the pudding here. Even when they had Christian McCaffrey, they were struggling offensively, and it just shows that Deebo Samuel is the truth. This guy is probably the most important player on their offense.
That's kind of one of the beauties of the way the Niners have built their team. They've got so many different playmakers, talented guys like Brandon Ayuk. Obviously, you've highlighted Deebo and McCaffrey. Just a lot of guys you can go to, and they've surrounded Brock Purdy with a lot of good talent. I haven't even mentioned George Kittle yet. And then we know how devastating that defense can be. They're a plus 109 this year in point differential, so they've just been outright fantastic. Even when they had that little stretch where they weren't playing good football, they've stayed afloat and they kind of got back on track this most recent week, and we're going to expect to continue seeing that going forward. Let's jump into our next game, though. We see a matchup here between the New York Jets and Buffalo Bills. And if we go back to the season opener, Aaron Rodgers tears his Achilles. It didn't matter. The Bills dropped a game to the Jets, and little did we know at that moment in time it would be foreshadowing to the Bills' season this year. They have been, I think, every single ounce of the word disappointing. They lost to the Bengals, who hadn't been playing great football, by 6 points. They only won by 1 score against the Buccaneers. They lost to the Broncos this most recent week. They lost to the Patriots October 22nd. Again, the Patriots have a 20% win percentage this year. They barely, narrowly beat the Giants. They lost to the Jaguars. No surprises there. Like, outside of their matchups against the Dolphins, where they won by 28, and their matchup against the Commanders, where they won by 34, those are 2 really great games. Otherwise, I don't think they've played that great. They've kind of played to the level of their competition or below it. And I think that's a massive concern for me going in. I don't think the Jets are a better football team. In fact, I think they're significantly worse, but there's nothing that makes me believe the Bills are going to completely come in and dominate them the way that they should. I'm going with the Jets. If they let the Jets hover around in this one, the Jets will find a way, like they did to open the season in dramatic fashion, with a win. I'm unsure right now about Buffalo. They're way better than they're playing, but they're just not playing well for me to have confidence in them. Austin, talk me into them a little bit here.
I think when we talk about the ultimate get right game, you're coming off of an atrocious loss to Denver, which was inexcusable in a lot of ways. But once again, they were bailed out first and foremost by a missed field goal. So at the end of the day, they put themselves in a terrible position to ultimately lose to a team that's not very good. But I think that this is the get right game. It has to be. It has to be. Once again, I've been saying this for a couple of weeks here that the Bills need to find that turnaround. This is actually a very pivotal game for both of these teams here, with the Jets coming off of an atrocious game offensively against the Raiders. Oh my God, was that terrible to watch. I just neither team do I have any amount of confidence in. Surprisingly, I've been a Jets truth for a long time. They burned me, facing the Raiders, which I thought that they could have got after Aiden O'Connell, which they did. They just couldn't score. That's the problem. That is the problem with this team. Zach Wilson has had an enormous amount of struggles. It's been well documented. He's been memed. I'm not going to pile on to that, but at the end of the day, I think the Bills are a better team. They're at home. It's a divisional game. This has got to be the turning point. Otherwise, I have some serious questions about this future of this roster.
I do want to talk about Josh Allen really quickly here. Last time he played the Jets, he had 3 interceptions in that one. I think the Jets defense is going to keep them alive in this game. On the year, Allen has 19 touchdowns, 11 picks. He's on pace to have the most turnovers in a single season of his career currently. Now he's completing the most passes of his career as well at 70%. So it's kind of an interesting dilemma here where it's almost the decision making is really the big issue, not the accuracy, not some of the other stuff. And I think if the Jets can confuse him enough, they keep themselves alive. But this is going to be a fun game. And really, like you said, Austin, kind of a realization moment for the Bills of, are they going to live up to the expectations, or are they going to completely crumble and then, go into a 3-game losing streak here if they lose this one? There's a lot riding on this game for them, and I think it's going to be a fascinating one to tune into. Let's jump into our next matchup here now this week, and we've got another in-division rivalry game here. The Seattle Seahawks head into Los Angeles to take on the Rams at SoFi Stadium, and I think this is a very polarizing matchup for a couple of reasons. First of all, the Rams were playing really good football. Since then, they've lost 3 straight games. They were 3-3 at one point. They're now 3-6. The Seahawks are 6-3. So you've got, kind of opposite records here at this point. But they're not really too far off in terms of the points, 4 points against. I think the Rams just haven't been playing good football, and I think this is a potential get-right game for them, like you talked about with the Bills, where, yes, you're facing a really good matchup in division, but that home field is going to be a really big marking point here in this one for me on why I think the Rams can win. And just whether or not their quarterback play is consistent, good, reliable. Obviously, with Stafford in and out this year, that's been a problem for them. We knew that coming into the year that if Stafford wasn't healthy, they wouldn't be that good. I think there's going to be a lot of questions still going forward about this team. But Austin, you've got Seattle here in this one. How much of that stems from kind of the inconsistencies from the Rams?
Yeah, so the Rams have been up and down, and Stafford's injury has been a big reason why. But right now, I think when you look at the Seattle Seahawks, they have found a little bit of a rhythm. I mean, now they had a scare, last week. I'm not sure if I'm ready to give up on Seattle here. I think they're going to focus on running the football. The receivers are going to have to step up in a big way. It's super tough to contain this Rams offense, but at the end of the day, I think that, Seattle's secondary is actually, or they should do a decent job holding them down. I'm once again, whether that's Puka Nacua or if it's, Cooper Kupp, one of those two guys are going to get theirs in this football game. And to me, I think Seattle just has enough. I think they're going to run the football effectively, and they should come out in a narrow victory.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating to watch. Again, Stafford is expected back this week. We'll have to see what kind of impact that has on the game. Obviously, you don't know what version of the Rams you're going to get week in, week out. Kind of taking a little bit of a risk here picking them, but I'm kind of riding with my gut on this one. Let's jump forward into our next matchup, and it's a Sunday night one. And listen, if you would have told us week 2, week 3, looking ahead, like, oh my goodness, we got Vikings, Broncos, week 11, Sunday Night Football. Listen, these two teams are playing really great right now. The Broncos on a 3-game winning streak and the Minnesota Vikings on a 5-game winning streak. We've kind of seen Russell Wilson look a little bit more like the Russell Wilson of old lately, Austin, especially, considering his electric throw he had this most recent week for a touchdown to Cortland Sutton on a beautiful toe drag. And what about the Minnesota Magic we've seen from Josh Dobbs escaping the pocket, making some unreal plays with his legs, but also kind of getting some of his timing down with the receivers. We saw some really nice passes this past week from him as well in a pretty convincing win over the New Orleans Saints. So, Austin, Vikings at Broncos. You go with the Broncos here. I went with the Vikings. I think this is a real toss-up game. They're both playing really good football right now. What's your thoughts here on Denver?
I think that Denver has played pretty well so far. I'm not exactly sure how much more that you can ride out this Vikings team. They can't run the ball, especially on design runs. Alexander Madison has been awful. He's been actually one of the worst running backs I've seen in a long time carrying the football, super uncompetitive. I think with Ty Chandler having an opportunity that is going to help, he had an explosive run that was called back on a holding penalty. I think he offers a little bit more in that regard, but Javonte Williams for Denver should have a big game. Russell Wilson's been cooking a little bit. Cortland Sutton has been awesome this year. He's been a touchdown machine, finding some consistency week in, week out. And I think that's why a lot of people are a little bit more bullish on them than before. I think there's a lot of opportunity for growth here. Sean Payton, Russell Wilson, starting to find some things that work for them. And I think that's why they're going to win a primetime game at home in the altitude. Minnesota's going to struggle with that.
Yeah, the Broncos have been really pleasant surprises as of late, but I think one thing worth highlighting, through the first 10 games of the year, the Vikings are 6-4. They have played in 9 one-score games. So I think one thing to lock in and expect this week is a really tight competitive football game. The Broncos, as of late, have been winning tight competitive games. They did so this past week, obviously, with some last-second drama there. And I think coming into this game, you almost have to bet that whoever has the ball last or puts themselves in a position to win at the end of the game is who's going to get the job done. And I think that's why it's a real toss-up here in this matchup. And let's get into Monday Night Football. And honestly, one of the best games of the season. Obviously, a Super Bowl rematch, Austin. The Chiefs got the better of the Eagles last time. And before we really hopped into this segment here, I wasn't sure who I was going to ride with. Am I going with the Chiefs? Am I going with the Eagles? I landed on Kansas City at home for a couple of different reasons. One, they're at home. That's a huge advantage to them. Now, I don't have inside information on if Taylor Swift's going to be at the game or not. We'll have to see which Travis Kelce we get. Will we get the super productive version or not? My guess is yes, he will be super productive in this game. And they're also coming off of bye. So they're rested. They've had a week to plan for this game. Obviously, this is a really important matchup, and one that when they look across the sidelines and see the team that they just beat in the Super Bowl, I think the attention to detail, everything that they do execution-wise this week is going to be up to par. We're going to see the best version of the Chiefs we've seen all year long. I think that, at 7-2, you'd have to say, well, they've been impressive so far. I still think that they have another level to get to. I expect them to reach that level this week. But look, the Eagles are a really tough task. They're 8-1. Again, like I said, this is not an easy game to pick. Austin, you went with the flip side of the coin here with Philadelphia. Break down your reasoning as to why. I really don't think there's a wrong answer here.
Yeah, I think when you actually look at the two teams, very evenly matched. Kansas City's defense has been great this year. Philadelphia's defense offers a number of different problems, especially in that front seven. The guys up front get some great pocket push. It's going to force Patrick Mahomes on some off-schedule plays, which he's phenomenal at, which gives Kansas City an opportunity to be competitive in this game. But I think Philadelphia is going to be good on the ground. I really do. I look at what they have been able to do with DeAndre Swift, kind of his career has been resurrected in some way, shape, or form, compared to where he was in Detroit. He had really fallen out of favor with them and is picked up right where he left off at the point in time when he was a super promising back, a guy that could be a franchise level running back. He has been that good this year. Philadelphia has been great in terms of just, winning with consistency, winning and closing out those close games. So for me, it was not an easy pick by any stretch of the imagination. I went back and forth, but I think the pure motivation from Philadelphia losing to Kansas City in that Super Bowl is enough reason to pick them here.
These two teams are so comparable right now. The Chiefs 4-1 at home on the year. The Eagles 4-1 on the road this year. The Eagles currently are a plus 57 in scoring margin. The Chiefs are currently a plus 65. So again, you're right in the same ballpark in terms of how good and dominant they've both been in their respective situations. So this is really the game of the week. The big winners here are not only the fans, but also the NFL schedule makers for kind of saving this game for kind of later in the season when a lot of the hype and desperation starts to kick in. I think this is going to be a fantastic matchup. One definitely worth tuning into this week. Hopefully you guys did enjoy today's video. We had a lot of fun recording this. A lot of work goes into these videos. So if you do enjoy everything Austin does, specifically his coverage, his analysis, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more great NFL content, and we'll catch you guys in the very next Utility Sports Plus video.